There's currently lots of confusion and debate over who is a socialist. And this has become super prominent in right-wing political discourse as of late. You might remember that at the latest State of the Union address, Donald Trump even loudly proclaimed that the United States is never going to be a socialist country. And I want to dig into this today. First of all, as I've said before, Trump can't actually control whether the U.S. ever becomes a socialist country, and he can't control what happens after his presidency. But the most important reaction to have when Trump loudly proclaims that is that there's no big clamoring for actual socialism from anyone in power in the United States. The furthest left ideas that are prominent in the US from elected officials are socially democratic ideas with the tiniest sprinkling of people in Congress who actually are open to the idea of socializing the means of production. But basically, the furthest left ideas that are part of the dialogue are social democratic ideas. Number two, to very, very crudely summarize it, socialism sort of split off in the late 19th century. One direction was the Stalinist-Leninist line, which became communistic. And then there's the social democracy line, which became most prominently early or late in the 19th century, the Swedish Social Democratic Party. But that doesn't actually matter because this is a known tactic. The tactic is smear as communist anything that is socially democratic. That's the tactic that we've seen for a very long time. Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky write about this in their 1988 book, Manufacturing Consent. We have to be able to really think about this. We have to separate our personal beliefs from factual history. As people know, I'm not a communist, but I'm acknowledging that communism has been smeared as a propaganda method dating all the way back to the early 20th century in the United States. And the reason that this can happen, the reason that social democracy can be smeared under the umbrella of communism, is because a lot of people don't really understand what social democracy is versus socialism versus communism. So it's a tactic that works really, really well. I don't want to give a full history lesson here, and we've gone into the differences between socialism and communism and social democracy. But what you have to understand is that most of the American left is not socialist, and it's also not communist to the extent that they even know the differences between those ideologies and social democracy. Because the right accuses people like me, social democrats, of being communists or socialists, we immediately end up on the defensive. We on the left end up having to defend what is socialism or communism. We end up mishandling it. We end up sounding sometimes like the anti-communist reactionaries that have been in the United States since the early 20th century, when no one's actually talking about communism. So it's a really good tactic that the right uses. It's a brilliant smear. You say, hey, you know what? We could learn a lot from the healthcare system of the UK or from Canada or Sweden or Switzerland. And in comes the right and they say, that is a communist idea, that's a socialist idea. The next part of the conversation, when someone says, let's see how we can improve our healthcare system, the next part of the conversation should be, you know what, we should discuss, is Medicare for all the best path forward? Or would we be better off with a nationalized care delivery system and a nonprofit health insurance apparatus? Or would the German system be better than the Swiss system? Or what elements of the Canadian system would be good? That's the way the conversation should go. You often can't even get there because in comes the right saying that's socialist, that's communist, it's a government takeover, it's anti-American. And what the left ends up having to do, or ends up doing anyway, is arguing about whether healthcare for all is socialist. It's the wrong debate. It has worked for 100 years. It fragments the left, particularly because it makes the small portion of the left that is actually socialistic come out and say, we are socialists and that's a good thing. That's not the majority of the left. The demonization of communism might not really seem important to social democrats because we're not communists, but it's very damaging because it creates this sort of false dichotomy between communists and anti-communists. The reality is There's no threat of communism in the United States. Social democrats who believe in a mixed economy and healthcare for all don't think about communism very much. What we're talking about is modernizing our basic systems the way that many rich countries have done. But when they draw the line as either you're a communist or you're an anti-communist, it makes the left split and it makes the left start to sound like reactionaries, and we end up losing. So there's two sides to this. Number one, we should accept that either way, they are going to smear social democratic ideas as communist ideas. These are capitalist ideas. They exist in capitalist systems, whether it's universal health care, tuition-free college, living wages. They will say these are communist ideas. They are not. We should expect that, and we should know how to deal with it. But the one word of caution to the left is we also shouldn't help them out by saying we are democratic socialists when we are social democrats. There's a number of elected officials in the Democratic Party that have made this mistake. They call themselves democratic socialists when they are not. That makes it easier for the right to fracture the left, for the right to smear the left as socialist. Let's not make it easier for them. Let's call ourselves social democrats, if that's what we are. If you're a socialist, by all means, call yourself a socialist. There's no advantage to using the term democratic socialist if it doesn't actually apply. It just makes the right smear tactics more effective. But understand, this has been going on for a very, very long time, and we should not fall for it.